If you think the crowds at the stores are something today, just wait until the day after Christmas, when some of those gifts you've put so much thought into end up back in the store.
Now, do you expect anyone to have to return any of the gifts you bought them?
No.
That's what Lori would like to think, but those who work retail for a living know better.
Busy for return? It is busy for returns. Size-wise, I mean, there's a lot of things that people might just be coming back to exchange sizes. So it does get busy, and there will be lines. That's why it's a good idea to get here early.
Returns may not occur as rapidly as sales, but the day after Christmas is absolutely crazy. So one important, stores know there are a lot of you who are just never satisfied. So many stores are going out of the way the day and week after Christmas to make returns and exchanges as...
Have you ever returned a gift that somebody else has given you?
Yes. My grandmother bought me a sweater one year, and I told her I liked it, but I took it back and got the money.
Outside Northridge Mall, the parking lot is nearly empty. No cars, no people, and as of today, no Sears Auto Center. The repair shop closed today, and the department store will shut its doors for good on January 26th. The reason? Underperformance. Now, nearly 200 people will lose their jobs. And a mall already struggling to attract shoppers will lose one of its only 2 department stores left after Yonkers and J.C. Penney's closed last year.
It makes me sad because, you used to come out here like a couple of years ago and you couldn't hardly find a place to park. And a good mall like this going to waste, I don't understand it.
And Sears isn't the only retailer to pull out of Northridge in recent days. Since Christmas Eve, Eddie Bauer, Fred Meyer Jewelers, Things Remembered, and Wilson's Leather have all closed. Verizon Wireless and Matrix will close on Monday.
They're saying like every other week or so stores have been closing, so I don't know what's going on.
Thanks for coming out. This is just like Footloose, man. All we want to do is dance. All we want is... I love that mall. That mall is very special to me. We'll come back to the mall next week. We'll do it next week, right? I just hate to leave this place.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back and welcome to my very special, very much anticipated Dead Malls episode. Today, as the warm summer skies filter golden sun through sharded skylights of a long forgotten mall, still sitting today as it did in this video, we take a look at the famous Northridge Mall in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And where do I even begin? This mall has been abandoned in time for 20 years now, still remaining, albeit highly vandalized and quite destroyed, as it did upon closing, and before that, an 80s time capsule. We have a lot to cover. A Dead Mall chronicle, one of risk, triumph, fear, horror, and sadness. And as we tell the entire story front to back of Northridge Mall, you will see it as I did on a blazing summer day in 2022. Now I know a lot of people have already covered this mall. A lot of people. I can't stress it enough. Enough to the point where you've probably heard the story 100 times. But this is my take, my tale, my rendition of exploring and seeing one of the most fascinating places in my life. And while I was here, I wanted to see every part of this mall, so I really took my time, despite the constant looming danger and several instances of people walking up to me, complete strangers, who could have done anything. But that was all besides the point, because seeing and telling the tale of Northridge was one I had to do. So let's dive in. Before we get started, I'd like to shout out our winner, who was able to successfully guess the next mall. Very nice job, mall and retail legend. If you'd like to have your chance of being shouted out in the next episode, stick around for the next challenge. Anyways, let's park our vehicle, head across the jungle-esque parking lot, and tell the story of Northridge Mall and see how it's doing as of July of 2022. The second I stepped over that crushed guard fence and stooped across the long, abandoned parking lot, I knew there was no turning back. Well, actually there was, but figuratively, I was in no man's land. And keep your eye out, as throughout this video you can see other souls venturing the ruins. It's actually sort of terrifying with some of these abandoned malls. They're lawless places where some of the lowest come to score drugs and commit illegal activities. Anything can happen here. So this is your warning. Throughout this mall, there are plenty of graphic and offensive graffitis, so if you're offended easily, this may not be the video for you. But to those of you that have stuck around, let's head in. Immediately upon entering Northridge Mall, I was just speechless. It was completely and utterly destroyed. A shell of the 80s, and you can see it through the dust and debris. There's still those once vibrant pink and blues. Of course, and you could hear it, there was another guy in there with me when I first went in, although he was leaving. He couldn't help himself though, and just had to stop me and tell me I was cute, which was really weird, but we persisted. I was initially taunted and worried, but as I got further in and the sounds dulled, I was left in complete wonder and fascination. If you look closely, you can see the veiled strains of smoke clouding the upper level. While there may be hints of the morning dew, it's primarily the smoke and excess of a myriad of hard drugs. Can you believe that at one point in time, these exact smashed up and trashed storefronts were home to some of the nation's busiest, most colorful, and life-filled tenants? That fountains erupted in dazzling, glimmering fashions under lush neon-basked trees, while silent hums of the escalators took their shoppers to and fro its over 150 stores? Everything was in this mall. A 6-screen movie theater, a 12-bay food court, and 4 massive anchors. It was the primetime destination to do anything in Milwaukee, so how did it end up like this? What happened? Well, strap in, grab your popcorn, snacks, and fine beverages, turn the lights down low, and allow me to set the stage, because we're gonna go back to the start, the very first page.
Enter the modern superhighway.
Northridge Mall's story begins over 60 years ago in the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Post-war, Milwaukee and its vastly growing suburbs were booming. The city was growing at an exponential rate, as thousands upon thousands of returning GIs were starting their families in typical post-war American fashion. And as the suburbs of Greenfield, Waukesha, and the ever-so-expanding North Side boomed, the city responded to these growing needs. Shopping, housing, new jobs, and most importantly, transportation. You see, Milwaukee was a much older city, designed for a very different era, and as the cars and automobiles took over the country, the city needed a new type of road. In the words of On Milwaukee, Milwaukee's existing roads weren't designed for the automobile. Most were laid out when horses and buggies were still the primary modes of transportation. The arrival of streetcars in the early 20th century did little to help the situation. By the time cars became common, Milwaukee's roads were a mess of chaos and gridlock. And what better way to solve that issue of gridlock than cutting through it all like a hot knife and butter? By 1948, the Milwaukee County Expressway Commission was put in place, and by 1952, the city had secured funding for its expressway overhaul. And what would come, the age of concrete, would be something. 16 freeways would be planned to cut through and dissect the city, taking its travelers to and fro. However, only a handful of these would ever be built. The Lake, Belt, Stadium, Park, Bay, and Fond du Lac freeways were all completed, but several others weren't, including the mishmash, horrible, car-centric Park Loop Beltway, a project that would displace hundreds of residents as the city bought out homes around the perimeter of downtown, demolishing them. The project was supposed to encapsulate downtown in one belt freeway, however only half would be built, and construction would entirely halt in 1969. By then, there was a revolutionary citywide push coming from its residents to stop the freeways, as they were literally destroying the city. They were still being built, but it was becoming clear the age of the expressway may end. Herb Kohl, founder of a little chain called Kohl's, senator of Wisconsin, and rich millionaire, was eyeballing this trend of freeways, and by 1969, with the rise of the shopping mall, was also eyeballing 2 tracts of land to be connected to the city by these freeways, one in the suburb of Greenfield on the south side, and the other on the far northern reaches of Milwaukee County. Working with Taubman Centers, revolutionaries in the mall development world, he began planning out his empire. 2 malls to connect the city together, all strung on by its glamorous freeways. On September 10th, 1970, Southridge Mall would officially open for business, the sister to an already under construction Northridge on the north side. Southridge was a testament for what was to come. Inside, shoppers enjoyed a modern, minimalistic experience. The mall boasted expansive anchor courts, red carpet recessed seating areas, minimalistic sculptures, and just about every store under the sun. Upon opening, it was the largest mall in Wisconsin, but it was just the beginning. Southridge would very soon be joined by its near-identical twin, which was getting ready for its very own opening day ceremonies. A fun fact for you all, something I didn't know, but Northridge and Southridge are actually on the same road, the 4-lane 76th Street, which spans across the entire city, with Southridge on the right-hand side and Northridge on the left, leading northbound, connecting them in a way even further. Northridge Mall would officially open on August 2nd, 1972, as the poster child of the suburban American mall. A great disc of concrete parking surrounded the enormous structure, with residents from all over the city making several trips around trying to find even a spot. Betwixt its 4 enormous anchor stores, Sears, JCPenney, Boston Store, and Milwaukee-based Gimbels, lie an expansive modern paradise of shopping, with over 130 stores across 2 levels. The mall itself featured dozens of conversation pits, blocky planners, phone booth-style directories, chrome accented lights, And in the center court, a dazzling stainless steel sculpture called the Fountain of Illusion, which would cascade water down its entirety through several abstract shapes and pieces into a large pool, all of course lit up. Stores to open throughout the mall included KB Toys, Casual Corner, Spencer's Gifts, Zales, Shaw Jewelers, 1 Hour Photo, Baker's Shoes, and so much more. Oh yeah, not to mention the 3-screen theater near Sears operated by United Artists, simply named The Movies. But wait, there's more. You see, not only was the development of the massive Northridge Mall, but across the street, it was in co-development of the Northridge Lakes housing development, a series of hundreds of apartments spanned out across Northridge Lake. And with the North Beltline Freeway soon to zip the metro right by the mall, connecting it to the rest of the city, it seemed like Northridge Mall was almost too big to fail. But upon that glorious 1972 opening, it was already doomed. Freeways were supposed to connect everything. Milwaukee wanted to be an empire of cars, but the people of Milwaukee did not want that. You see, with the constant construction of more and more and more freeways, thousands were losing their homes, communities were being divided, and a system once thought to free the city was clogging it up in congestion and tearing it apart in ribbons of concrete. By 1972, while confetti was flying in Northridge, protest groups from the city's many different neighborhoods were standing in the way of bulldozers. Enough was enough. In 1974, most of the freeway projects were cancelled, including the North Belt, which would have connected Northridge to the rest of the city. And in 1979, the Freeway Commission was entirely abolished, leaving Northridge stranded upon miles of arterial roads, which was just an early yet detrimental happening of its growth. The 70s, despite the cancelled freeway, would be largely uneventful. Stores would come and go, Northridge would thrive, and soon scattered big box retail would surround the mall, as well as housing growth. Funny enough, the marketing for Northridge and Southridge was quite fierce. They were sister malls, and they shared that regard in nearly every way, from the architecture to the shared commercials. They were a package deal, and you couldn't go anywhere without hearing gents or gals on TV babbling about which mall was better. All in good fun, of course.
Is at Southridge. The best selection is at Northridge. Southridge has a bigger fountain.
For the best selection in either direction this Valentine's Day, at Northridge and Southridge.
Yet, it wasn't all unicorns and butterflies. Milwaukee's northward growth of the upper-class residents would slow way down, and the main suburban push would be focused on the west side towards Waukesha. Coupled with the fact that newer malls were being built and malls were renovating like Bayshore and Mayfair, Northridge and Herb Cole himself saw the sticky situation unfolding, and by the early 80s, several stores in the mall began to close. As we come down towards the old Sears, you get a really good taste of the 80s, as all of these stores were never changed. When they all closed, they were just drywalled, and years later that same drywall has been ripped apart, so you can see hints of a different era. Sam Goody, KB Toys, Spencer's Gifts, Babbage's, Mr. Bulky. The aesthetic overload here is immeasurable. We're gonna table the history real quick as we come down and explore the old, long abandoned movie cinema. I'll see you all real quick. Can you imagine? It's 1989. You're so excited, standing in line in this very theater, crowds shuffling in and out, in line for some fine refreshments. You're on your way into the theater room to see the very much anticipated sequel of Back to the Future. Outside those doors, the mall thrives with families, teens, and elders all looking for the best deals shuffling past. Could you imagine in 3 decades that same spot you were waiting in line would look like this? The theater's falling apart, pristine glass smashed, counters empty? Well, that's the reality. The sad, hard truth. No matinees will ever be shown in these theaters again. And these empty halls will forever be left like this until it's all eventually torn down.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
By the mid-80s, the floundering Northridge was seen by most as sort of outdated. Despite being only a decade old, the space-age phone booth directories, dated colors, and rusting fountain in the center court proved to be less than an ideal shopping experience, especially in the age of food courts and neon. In 1987, Marshall Fields put up their Suave logo as the company had acquired 5 Wisconsin-based Gimbal stores, being the first anchor name change yet. This location would change hands a few more times though. The loss in popularity of the mall made itself apparent in January of 1988, when Cole and Taubman Centers announced that they were selling the mall and its sister Southridge to Chicago-based JMB Realty, a fairly respected mall ownership company in the scene. The sale would close with a price tag of $223 million, being the largest real estate sale in Wisconsin up to that point. Usually the dumping of a mall means bad news, but this was actually quite on the contrary, as soon after JMB released news that both malls would receive a $6 million makeover, with Northridge gaining new fountains, greenery, colors, complete renovations to almost all stores, the addition of 20 new stores, plus a brand new neon-decked food court called Sky Ridge Cafes. A new mall entrance near the lower level of Sears would also be constructed to welcome shoppers into the paradise of neon. And so, with these plans in action, construction barriers rose, and throughout the summer of '88, work began, converting the tired old mall into something truly extraordinary. To celebrate what was to come, several summer sales took place, with mannequins in store windows and employees often found dressed in yellow hard hats. While I was walking through Northridge, there was this very distinct smell. It was a smell I'll never forget. I mean, I know now that it was mold, but it was like the strongest, freshest, most amazing smell of dirt, like fresh earth. And somehow I didn't get sick, but I'll never forget what that smell was like. It was so distinct. Sometimes I'll be taking a walk in the park, or mowing the grass, and I'll be reminded like PTSD of that fateful July day. In November of 1988, Northridge Mall would be reopened as a completely new mall experience, now in line with some of the fanciest and most neon-filled malls out there. The 450-seat Skyridge cafes feature 12 dining options, with favorites such as McDonald's, Cinnabon, Chick-fil-A, A&W, Subway, Corn Dog on a Stick, Taco Bell, Sparrow, and several others, all of course clad in neon. The food court itself was filled with colorful flowers, pastel tile, and lush Christmas light-wrapped trees, which would reach up into the skylights, which bathed the entire area in beautiful natural light. Wrapped around the curved and natural angles of the ceilings, which were a nice contrast to the mall's otherwise sharp corners everywhere else, like pink, white, and blue neons, because it's the 80s and you can never have enough neon. At the end of the food court, a huge bay window illuminated the night as a beacon to the city that this was the place to be. But that was just the start. Down the hall in the brand new center court, now known as the Grand Court, it was almost unrecognizable from the bland features it previously held. Now, neon-lit pagodas rose from each end, filled with neon-lit kiosks. Near JCPenney, a grand elevator with a clock tower perched atop sat, giving the entire area a town square feel. Brand new escalators, fountains, a stage, and dozens of plants and trees filled the atmosphere. Coupled with the streetlights, it's almost impossible to describe how beautiful it was. Looking into some of these photographs, I can almost immerse myself in the fountains splashing, escalators humming, and birds singing in the trees. Yes, I know there weren't any birds, but tell me you don't see a small town vibe when you look at this photo. Other features to come with the overhaul include new trash cans, flowers outside, benches, directories. The theaters will be expanded to 6 screens across 2 levels, and oh yes, how could I forget dozens of new neon-lit stores. Sam Goody, Musicland, Suncoast, 9 West, J. Jacobs, Time Out, Chess King, Black's Photography, Claire's, Wicks and Sticks, The Children's Place. I could go on, but it's almost impossible to enunciate what it was like. To those lucky souls that got to experience the neon years of Northridge, to those who said it was like walking through Vegas at night, see yourselves lucky for getting to experience what it was like, because this was it. The peak. Everything from 1989 on was downhill. As we come down to the lower level, you'll see where the majority of Vandal's garbage goes. It genuinely hurts me to see the mall like this. Compared to all those photos from the late 80s or early 90s, I can't believe anyone in the city would have thought that the mall would end up like this. You know, I actually wasn't too scared while walking through here. Despite being completely abandoned and a place for lowlifes to score drugs, it was actually super well lit throughout, thanks to the skylights. And let's talk about that. How have those ceilings held up so well for 20 years? Jamestown, another mall you all might know about, has been abandoned for 9 years, yet the whole place is falling apart. Just goes to show, I guess, how much effort Tubman put into their malls. Also, real quick, you may notice that the planters and the conversation pit here in front of the old Marshall Fields looks pretty retro. And that's because when they did the 88 remodel, they kept this area as sort of a callback to what it was like pre-renovation. In early '89, Marshall Fields abandoned Northridge, with the store going to Sheboygan-based H.E. Prangies. However, the struggling company wouldn't last, with Des Moines-based Yonkers opening in its spot after being bought out in 1992. Yonkers would continue to operate in the mall along with Boston Store, which is strange as we see both of them today as Bon-Ton stores, but this was the time before that purchase, so the two operated independently in Northridge. 1992 was also the year bad news struck. Here's a blast from the past, Freeway, the long-abandoned, forever shrouded in darkness, Time Out Arcade, still retaining those classic shapes and colors. Long ago, this exact location would have been full of eager kids waiting for their turn at Killer Instinct, and right across the hall, the old McDonald's, before it relocated to the food court. I don't think this location was ever filled again after 1988, so it's been sitting abandoned for over 35 years. I wish I would have gone in, but these dark areas did spook me quite a bit, so yeah. I'm sorry to have to kill the mood, to go from bittersweet nostalgia to sadness, but this is where it ends, where the glory years, the neon, the color, the life end. On April 21st, 1995, 35-year-old Jesse Anderson and his wife Barbara Lynch went to a movie at the Northridge theaters. Afterwards, they went to eat at a TGI Fridays in the mall's parking lot. While walking back to the car, Jesse grabbed Barbara and stabbed her 5 times in the face. He then proceeded to stab himself a few times in the chest, albeit weakly, and Barbara would go into a coma and die from her injuries a few days later. Jesse would claim that they were attacked by 2 African-American men, presenting the police with a basketball cap he had knocked off of one of them. However, they quickly traced the purchase to a student he bought it from at a local university, and traced his knife to a purchase a few days prior. On the 29th of April, he was arrested and received life in prison. Jesse would be admitted to the Columbia Correctional Facility, and 2 years later, while cleaning a bathroom with notorious serial cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer, they would both be killed within minutes by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver. The disgusting and cowardly actions by Jesse would soon close TGI Fridays, and by the mid-90s, Northridge was given the perception it was a very dangerous place to shop, with local TV putting out mall crime watches and heightened security. Soon stores would leave due to the decreased foot traffic as people were scared of Northridge Mall. "1992 was a weird time, because prior to the fear of crime, in August, Northridge's 20th anniversary would be held. The weekend festivities included cake for 500 people, celebrity appearances, the mayor would swing down, and even the running back for the Green Bay Packers, Paul Hornung, would show up to sign autographs. Upon the weekend's end, a 20-year time capsule would be put into the Grand Court stage, which featured relics of the 90s and several from the mall itself, with the purpose of being reopened in 2012. We all know how this would end. Sadly, the time capsule would expire past its date, being forgotten until vandals dug it up and stole its contents in 2017. The late 90s would see little action for the mall. Brown Deer High School would host their 1997 after prom in the food court, and Yonkers would leave in 1999, as the underperforming store was found unviable. The space would never be filled again. Before 2000, almost every store would leave, as every tenant's lease contract came to a close around this time, with dozens of walls going up to hide the emptiness. A new tagline introduced that would appear all over the mall was "Rediscover Northridge," an adventure the city's residents would never seek. One by one, as the neons died and the walls went up hiding the 80s facades, Northridge was left emptier and emptier each day. The once flowering and cared for food court and center court would be left abandoned as the trees grew wildly and planners left empty. 5 years prior in 1995, the movies would close, with the screens going dark for the final time after showing films such as Ace Ventura, Jumanji, and Batman Forever. A new era began for Northridge, a silent, cold era. All around, the outdated, cluttered mess of retail would die. Almost every retailer would close. Newer outlet malls and newer suburban developments out west left Northridge in the past. JCPenney would close its doors on June 1st, 2000, being 2 anchors down. With just a dying Sears and Boston store, it was bleak. Some of the only operating tenants at this time were a rave clothing store and a small handful of organizations or dollar stores. The entire food court in 2000 would also be completely walled off, with the chairs and tables long sold off. The neons that once lit the grand atriums were also usually left off. The escalators would be tarped off and deactivated to conserve power. However, all of these efforts were in vain, as in August of 2002, it was announced that Northridge Mall, after 30 years, would officially close its doors for good. September 1st was its final day, with power being cut to the structure shortly after. Sears and Boston store would operate independently, with Sears closing in November of 2002 and Boston store finally shutting its doors in early 2003, leaving the entire mall abandoned. I think I would have gone down towards that old Mrs. Fields and Foot Locker, down this very old entry wing, but I got the worst feeling in my gut, and if there's one thing I've learned about myself throughout my years of malling, it's that my gut is always right, so I kind of skipped that. It wasn't planned to stay closed forever though. By early 2004, the then owners, the Tucker Development Group, planned to revitalize the abandoned shopping center with a $4.4 million grant. Granville Station, as it would be known, would save the abandoned mall. However, these plans never materialized, and instead, home superstore Menards would buy the old Sears, raising it and a portion of the mall to build a brand new store. That's why when you look at the old Sears end here, you see a giant cinder block wall, because just on the other side of that wall, the shopping lives on. Around this time, during 2005, a myriad of interesting things would occur. A discount furniture store called Value City would move into the old Boston store. However, they would close during the recession of 2009. That year of 2005, somehow, overnight, 35 industrial-sized air conditioner units were stolen from the roof. By 2010, the mall was still in great shape. Despite being abandoned for 7 years, at this point it was still in great condition, as the owners took great strides in securing it. When looking inside, people got a sense of the forgotten dreams of Northridge. The trees still grew, fountains could still be activated, and neons turned on. But usually it was left in the dark, with HVAC running through the structure. In 2014, the mall would be bought out by a Chinese group called Black Spruce Enterprises, who essentially just sat on it, literally. Nothing would ever materialize of their ownership. They had planned to reopen the mall as the Chinese Mall of North America, which would reopen all of the mall stores as sort of a Chinese marketplace, but these plans yet again would never materialize. After that, the mall would be used by YouTuber Casey Neistat for a holiday special in 2017. Security would pretty much dissipate soon after, and people would regularly break in to scrap and steal various things. Walls would come down and most of the glass would be smashed up. And in 2019, a horrible tragedy would occur. In July of 2019, Black Spruce hired maintenance worker Victor Diaz would be leaving the site after a routine checkup, when he noticed an electrical box with the cover open. Upon going to close it, he would be electrocuted and instantly killed when the box exploded. The mayor of Milwaukee would then hold a press conference to demolish the structure. However, Black Spruce would jump in after months of silence and submit plans for the Asian marketplace, which were just crappy renders so they could keep the building. They would, of course, do nothing with these plans. In 2022, a series of serious fires would ravage the mall, mainly near the food court and Old Yonkers. It got so bad that even the fire department seemed distraught.
The whole rest of the northwest side is without emergency coverage right now, as we're out here putting out fires in a pile of rubbish. So I'd like you to look at the line of firefighters back here. These men and these women have to go into this building repeatedly, putting their life at extreme risk because it has not been properly secured. It should have been raised a long time ago. I'm not the one. I'm not standing here and continuing to commit my firefighters to put their lives at risk. They have families.
In August, the mayor gave Black Spruce 5 days to secure the mall, otherwise they would face a $2,000 a day charge. The owner of Black Spruce apparently was camping and couldn't attend the hearing. The city gave the company a final ultimatum, with Black Spruce being in $200,000 of debt, trying to sell a building nobody wanted. Demolition would cost $15 million, so even today as you're watching this, Northridge sits still abandoned. So what do you think the future holds for Northridge Mall? As of this recording, Milwaukee-based Phoenix investors are interested in buying the property from Black Spruce, and have even taken measures into their own hands. As of last month, the entire mall was resecured, patrolled, and new cameras, sensors, and lights have been installed in the parking lots. Phoenix believes that the building has good bones, and could be used in the future as it is. And I'm gonna have to agree with them. The mall has held up surprisingly well for 20 years. Will it ever be like it was in those glorious neon years? Will people ever come back here with it having purpose again? Or has its time passed, and it's long overdue for the wrecking ball? Let me know what you think down below. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching tonight's episode. I know it took a while to come out, but Northridge was a special case for me, and I wanted to make sure I did it right. I also want to thank those of you who have joined me for the Michigan expedition. The start of Season 5 has been a blast, but trust me, it's just the start. We have a long road ahead of us, and so many more malls across the US to see. So stay tuned. Next week, as we head back home, we take a look at Omaha, Nebraska's prime 90s mall. A mall that is quite possibly the most beautiful mall in the world. Guess which one we'll be at, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. Anyways, until then, have yourselves a lovely day, and peace out, guys. See you later.